Well, Vladimir Putin has never humiliated Donald Trump like this before. Just the day before, on May 9th, Putin was talking about supporting peace in the Middle East and even said he was ready to help broker a peace agreement between the US and Iran. And today, there is information that Russia is actively using secret routes in the Caspian Sea to supply Iran with weapons to continue the war with the US and Israel. It turned out that Russia is supplying Iran not only with weapons, but also with any other assistance that helps Iran survive, hold on, and avoid surrender. Overall, it is noted that Moscow and Tehran are increasingly using the Caspian region as an alternative trade and military logistics route. Meanwhile, Donald Trump only says that Russia's assistance to Iran does not affect the war at all, but for some reason, that just doesn't seem to be the case. Iran is making an agreement with Iran, which, according to him, should have surrendered a month ago. But when Trump makes such statements, he's partly right, because the US simply can't track what's happening in the Caspian Sea. And there, the Americans are in for some very, very unpleasant surprises from Moscow. My name is Alexei Pechi. Let's discuss this topic together. But before we start, please subscribe to this YouTube channel, like this episode, leave any comment under this video, and subscribe to my Telegram channel Pechi News. The link to it is in the description of this video. There we publish breaking news as it comes in. So, the New York Times writes today that due to risks in the Strait of Hormuz area and instability in the Middle East, the Caspian Sea has become one of the safest routes for transporting Russian cargo to Iran. And here, all analysts unanimously note that the world's attention is focused specifically on the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz, where the most active phase of the war is taking place. But back in March, Israel did not start attacking the port of Bandar Anzali from the air for no reason. At that time, Israel called this strike one of the most significant it had ever carried out during its military operations against Iran. But the whole point is that this port, Bandar Anzali, is not located in the strategically important Persian Gulf, but in the Caspian Sea, a vast body of water situated hundreds of kilometers to the north. And Israel struck there for a reason. Next, I'll quote the New York Times. The Caspian Sea, which usually goes unnoticed, has gained new significance as a trade route connecting Russia and Iran. For the two allies involved in wars and facing harsher Western sanctions than any other country, the waterway serves as a channel for both open and covert trade, with supplies that have helped Iran remain an adversary of the United States despite the overwhelming military superiority of the US. Russia supplies Iran with drone components via the Caspian Sea, helping Iran restore its offensive capabilities after losing about 60% of its drone arsenal during recent fighting. Russia also supplies goods that would normally pass through the Strait of Hormuz, which is now blocked by the US Navy as part of global trade. As a result, analysts now point out that 4 Iranian ports on the Caspian Sea are operating around the clock, delivering wheat, corn, animal feed, and sunflower oil. That is, food supplies, then everything needed for production and other goods as well, including weapons, components, and feed. The point is that Iran has completely redirected its flows from the Strait of Hormuz to the Caspian Sea, but Trump doesn't want to see this. Russian trade officials and port statistics also indicate a sharp increase in Caspian shipments in recent months. 2 million tons of Russian wheat, which used to be sent to Iran every year through the Black Sea, are now under threat from Ukrainian attacks, and now it is being transported through the Caspian Sea. But as you understand, this is not something that can be discussed publicly, and there are also a lot of secret shipments of all sorts of things. And when I say a lot of secret shipments, I mean there really are many. I'll explain why a bit later. I'm saying this because the Caspian Sea has always been overlooked, since it is considered the largest lake in the world. Most of the trade passing through it is non-transparent. Monitoring from afar is difficult, partly because ships traveling between Russian and Iranian ports on the so-called inland lake usually turn off their transponders, which allow satellite tracking of vessel movements. Unlike the Persian Gulf, the United States cannot intercept ships in the Caspian Sea, since only the 5 countries bordering it have access. So, if you're looking for the perfect place to bypass sanctions or even move troops, it's the Caspian. Drone deliveries are evidence of the close defense partnership between Moscow and Tehran. It is well known that Russia supplies Iran with components for drones and even missiles through the Caspian Sea. In previous years, trade was carried out in both directions. Iran supplied drones to Russia for use in Ukraine, while Russia sent components to Iran. However, the need for supplies from Iran decreased after July 2014, when Russia, under license from Iran, began producing its own model of the Shahed drone at a factory in Tatarstan. And now, here's an interesting fact. In August of last year, Ukrainian forces sank a vessel in a Russian port on the Caspian Sea that was transporting components for Shahed drones from Iran. And a year earlier, in 2024, the US Department of the Treasury had already imposed sanctions on this vessel and its Russian owner, MG Flot, accusing them of transporting short-range ballistic missiles from Iran to Russia. For Russia and Iran, the strategic importance of the Caspian Sea has long been obvious. For 2 decades, they have been developing plans to create a trade corridor from the Baltic Sea to the Indian Ocean, stretching 7,200 kilometers passing through western Russia and then through the Caspian Basin, to avoid western trade routes. These ambitions exist mostly on paper, but they include replacing the aging fleet, building new port facilities, and constructing a new railway line. And here it's important to remember how Trump claimed that Russia supposedly isn't really helping Iran in this war. But partly Trump says this because the Caspian Sea is a blind spot for the United States of America. It's like a geopolitical black hole, as if nothing exists there. Let me explain why. And here the problem is even within the very structure of the US command. The countries bordering the Caspian Sea are literally on fault lines for American military planners. US European Command is responsible for Azerbaijan and Russia, while the Central Command is responsible for Iran, Turkmenistan, and Kazakhstan. So there is already a split between the commands. In the US State Department, these 5 countries are actually overseen by 3 separate bureaus. And basically, no one can put together a complete picture of what's actually happening there. So even American officials can't create a unified picture of what's happening in the Caspian Sea. The potential importance of the Caspian Sea became more obvious to planners in the United States and Western Europe after Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022. At that time, Russia used ships in the Caspian Sea to launch missiles at targets in Ukraine. But history remembers that it was from this very Caspian Sea that Russia launched missiles at Syria. And here, for the 3rd time in history, in modern history, the Caspian Sea is once again being used for war against the West, but the West still cannot respond and finally take control of this region. Friends, I'll leave it at that for now, but I want to immediately remind the Ukrainian-speaking audience of this YouTube channel that I have launched a completely new, exclusively Ukrainian language YouTube channel, where every evening we sum up the day's events, focusing specifically on Ukrainian current affairs. That's why I'll leave a link to the new Ukrainian language YouTube channel in the pinned comment to this video and in the description of this episode. Go ahead, subscribe if you still want to see the news in Ukrainian. Write your opinion and your conclusions in the comments under this video. And of course, subscribe to this YouTube channel and like this episode. And if you want to support the work of this YouTube channel, you can do so financially with any donation or a paid membership using the links and details in the description of this video or using the QR code on your screens. That's all for now. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye, everyone.